Good evening. My name is Parikhit Sinha. I'm a senior scientist with First Solar. I would like to try to provide some additive information beyond what you just heard. Let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I have a PhD from the University of Washington. I'm a former study director at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. I'm a U.S. representative to the International Energy Agency's photovoltaic power systems program. I've been working at First Solar's headquarters in Arizona for the last 8 years. So I know there's been a lot of back and forth on this topic. It's been discussed in many of these meetings. So I'd like to try to introduce a theme that could potentially bridge the divide between concerned citizens and the county and the applicant. And the way I want to do that is basically describe a little bit about the company and its history of the technology. So first of all, First Solar is a U.S. company, and it's also the largest U.S. solar manufacturer. It's headquartered in Arizona with manufacturing and recycling facilities in Ohio, as well as international locations. First Solar has been producing PV modules for over 2 decades, with over 200 million modules deployed in 18,000 projects in 35 countries. Locally in Virginia, there are projects utilizing the thin film cadmium telluride technology at Naval Air Station Oceana in Virginia Beach and in the Remington project for Microsoft in Fauquier County, Virginia. How does a U.S. solar manufacturer compete in an industry that is dominated by China? It is with a differentiated thin film cadmium telluride technology. So 2 decades ago, the solar industry really only had one option, which was silicon. And it was too expensive. It was a niche technology that was not mainstream. First Solar entered the market to disrupt the industry with a dramatically simplified way to make solar panels. So instead of starting with silicon wafers that need a lot of energy and chemicals to purify them, and then stringing these cells together to make a module, why not start with glass, a large area glass substrate, coat it with the appropriate material, make it in a few hours in one factory in one assembly line at half the cost of the competition. And that's what happened. And that's why that started the modern era of competitive solar. And it's a U.S. innovation started in Ohio. However, we've had the problem that we have a name problem, in that we call this cadmium telluride PV, and people see the word cadmium, they immediately assume it's cadmium. But of course, as you heard from Dewberry, it's a different substance. And I want to talk a little bit about what's happened in the last 2 decades. So we disrupted the industry. We created some enemies because we disrupted the industry. And we've had to address these concerns in every market we enter. In those 2 decades, we've continued to innovate. We had this great disruption, but we've continued to set records with this technology, establishing records in thin film cell and module efficiency, establishing the first recycling program in the industry, and becoming the leading O&M provider, operations and maintenance provider in the industry. Innovation is not about being the same as your competition, it's about being better. It means more rigorous testing, better performance in real-world conditions, a superior life cycle environmental profile. More than 40 researchers from leading U.S. and international institutions, including the county's independent engineer, Virginia Tech Center for Coal and Energy Research, have confirmed the environmental benefits and safety of First Solar's thin film cadmium telluride technology over its entire life cycle. And the EPA in Ohio awarded First Solar the Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award. We're also on Forbes' Just 100 list of America's best corporate citizens. Internationally, the European Commission has identified cadmium telluride as the best available technology option for photovoltaics as part of an ongoing eco-label study. So that's the background of the company. Why do I bring this up? It's about accountability. The county expects accountability from the technology provider for this project to stand behind their product and the warranty throughout the project duration. Being innovative has allowed First Solar to not just survive the competition from China, but to thrive. We are in the process of expanding our manufacturing footprint in Ohio, tripling our current capacity, adding 500 jobs to our existing 2,000 U.S. workers. While many of our competitors have come and gone, First Solar has a financial strength and balance sheet to stand behind the quality and reliability of its product and be a trusted technology provider to the county. I know the three topics that came up in the last meeting were about encapsulation, the tornado, and the rainwater leaching. And I think you've already heard from the consultant about those three topics, so I will not repeat them. But you have the Virginia Tech study to look at. You have First Solar, all those 40 researchers, reports from around the world are available on First Solar's website and have been for years. I just want to conclude with a request that, based on our track record, financial stability, and commitment to innovation and product stewardship, that makes First Solar the most accountable technology partner available to the county. And on behalf of thousands of U.S. workers who have proudly been manufacturing cadmium telluride PV technology for over 2 decades, we ask you to allow this technology to compete in your county on a technology-neutral basis. Thanks.
Hey, Ricky,
Yep.
What is the process for putting have you ever had, for getting the cadmium telluride out? I'm assuming y'all, does the Ohio plant do the same, the recycling, or where's your?
We were the first company to institute PV recycling. It was over a decade ago. And the process involves 2 steps, a physical step, a mechanical step of crushing the panel with an industrial shredder and hammer mill into millimeter pieces.
Millimeter?
Millimeter pieces, right. And then using industrial sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide, so acid and oxidation agent, to then extract the cadmium telluride. So it's a pretty aggressive process. For example, if you work in a lab in this area, they call that combination of hydrogen peroxide and sulfuric acid, they call it piranha. Because if you accidentally stick your hand in there, you lose your hand. So you need that kind of industrial chemical to extract this this material in our recycling facility.
Okay. I'm trying to think of other questions. I can't read off the top of my head unless somebody else has one. Charles.
So have these panels been put in a residential area with people on well water before, and if so, where?
Well, we have, like I said, 18,000 projects around the world, and the first 4,000 of the megawatts were primarily in Europe. Europe was the first region to experience the solar boom with the feed-in tariffs, and those projects are distributed solar projects. They're not the large utility scale projects that we're talking about today, and those are near residential.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so the desert sunlight is where panels were destroyed by a tornado, correct?
Yeah.
So was there contamination found in the study that studied that desert sunlight?
No, the process for dealing with that event was inspection, so looking for damage, and then cleanup, so collecting the damaged panels, and then recycling. So 135,000 panels were recycled. They were put in boxes, sent to Ohio for recycling. What could not be recycled, because they could not be put into boxes, was collected. So it's a combination of soil debris, soil and glass debris, and a composite sampling was done of that debris using TCLP. TCLP is your standard federal leaching test. So I know you've heard about all these other leaching procedures, but that's the standard one that the whole country uses, and that was used to determine the characterization of that waste.
When that study was done on that specific, with the tornado, was there an analysis done that showed that all the cadmium stayed inside the panels?
This was a cleanup effort. So we were determining whether the debris had a hazardous nature to it. The simple answer to your question is, if I were to break this panel right now, because the front and back are encapsulating the semiconductor with 725 pounds of strength per square inch, the material's inside that debris, inside that front and back glass debris, and so there's nothing to come out. You have to chemically or thermally extract the cadmium telluride to make it come out.
So you would say that all the cadmium was in those panels that were picked up and...
Yeah, based on all the testing we've done, trying to break these things with landfill crushers, with what we do in our recycling facility, we know what it takes to what you call delaminate these panels, and it's not a natural process.
Mr. Chair, a quick question. I think this really comes to later. What is the cost? Do you charge to recycle a panel?
Yes, we do.
So what is the cost? So
it's a few dollars. We've had two, we produced a smaller area panel for years that was about a square meter, and we've moved recently to a larger area panel. The old panel was a few dollars per panel to recycle.
Per panel. So what do you think on something that's being proposed here? What is the cost to recycle a panel? Roughly.
Well, it would have to be, for the new panels that we're putting in for this project, it would be 3 times that cost. So it would be on the order of $10, $15 a panel. We have a recycling service agreement that our customers can contract with us to fix that price for a few years. And then we've been continuously driving down that price over the years. So when we first started recycling, we were using processes that the mining industry was using to extract metals from rock. And since then, we've migrated to chemical industry processes. We've dropped the cost about a factor of 4, and we continue to drive it down, and so that every few years we'll have a new pricing agreement.
Okay.
And those prices are very comparable to silicon panel recycling.
Thanks.
Mr. Skinner.
Yeah, to follow up on his question, S-Power is going to own those panels, correct?
Yeah.
It's going to be their company. So if anything is destroyed during a hurricane, it's your responsibility to repair them, recycle them, or what? I mean, county plays no role in that whatsoever as far as cleaning it up and stuff of that nature, right?
Project owner is the responsible party. It's just like your California case that we brought up, the tornado. We're not the owner of that project. We're not the owner of the land either. So we are the O&M provider there. Everything we do is the data, everything is owned by the project owner. And so it's their responsibility to handle that event, whatever it is. And
So my question is, S-Power produces those panels. Is that right?
no, First Solar does, yeah.
First Solar, excuse me.
yeah,
I'm
right,
sorry. Never mind. I kept First Solar. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Mr. Benton.
Just out of curiosity, what happens to the glass when you recycle?
We have an off-taker who uses them in other glass products. Historically, it's been fiberglass or container glass, but there's a pretty high demand for recycled glass cullet because it's cheaper than primary glass production. You remove a lot of energy requirements from melting and producing primary glass. Same, we have other products. We make rubber products from the plastic in the panels. We reuse the cadmium telluride. This panel already has 10% reused content because we've been recycling for 10 years and we're reusing it again.
Have you ever, I guess this goes to decommissioning. Have you ever known of a company, I guess that your company has dealt with, where they walked away and some other entity didn't take over I mean, the examples have been given, how about if in 5 years S-Power decides to walk away? I couldn't imagine anybody in the energy, or even this county, allowing that to be decommissioned at that point and not using the
Right.
facilities.
The revenue stream from,
Right. I mean, there's always going to be a revenue stream as long as those panels are working.
right. Plus the interconnection. The big challenge for developing these projects is not just finding the land, but land in proximity to transmission, and transmission that has excess capacity to take on your electricity. So the fact that they have found that that combination of things makes that very valuable. Regardless of what happens to the facility, that transmission access is very valuable. And of course, the panels are producing power, which is
Or have you ever known of a company just to walk away and then any plant having to be decommissioned or?
No, we haven't had full decommissioning of any plant that I'm aware of.
What's the oldest that you know of?
We have, we started putting in commercial scale product in the early 2000s in Arizona. So that's almost 2 decades. The National Renewable Energy Lab has our panels up for 25 years on their outdoor test facility, and they're still functioning within the warranty 80% requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's move on. Oh, Mr. Jakubowski.
So if I can sum up, because I've looked at these studies too, and I'm not a scientist, I'm relying upon others to provide the answers to the questions that we're asking. So as solar panels, your solar panels in particular, which I'll only ask you to speak to, are sitting there regular use in a field, there is no groundwater or ground contamination that leaches out of them for a regular use such as that.
Right.
Then, through hurricanes, from what I heard, a few pretty good-sized hurricanes, and a tornado that cut through one in California, there still was no detectable toxins that were found in either after these events.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ross.
Did you make your study on desert sunlight available to Dewberry?
No, we have provided the summary of the results to Dr. Thanakis, and then Virginia Tech has summarized it as well. In order for us to, because we're not the project owner and we're not the landowner, it's the project owner that has the ability to share that information, and we have contacted them because of the interest from the community.
So you've contacted them and asked them to give it to Dewberry?
So we've asked them for permission to share it with the
Okay.
county, yeah.
When are you expecting an answer back on that?
It takes some time. I mean, we're waiting. It was only a few days ago when we sent the request.
Okay.
So.
Oh, one
Mr.
more.
Madden.
In that study, do you know of any, you say you do not know of any release of cadmium telluride at all?
Right.
Honestly, I got a glimpse of it real quick. But again, I don't know what context all these numbers were and stuff on there. But I thought I saw where like one had like a 0.7 or something.
Right, but that's not a release. That's the measure of a leaching test. So you take your debris and you put it into a chamber of acetic acid, and you shake it for 24 hours, and you measure what comes out, and then you compare what comes out to a threshold for hazardous waste.
Right.
And that's what you saw is the leaching potential of that debris.
All right.
And that's
Well,
not.
then I didn't know what I was looking
Yeah,
at because
yeah.
literally he just showed me real quick to verify that it was a report.
Right,
And I was,
right.
of course, trying to be as nosy as I could and seeing everything as quick as I could.
Yeah. So
Okay. Thank you.
that's really when I think what the community's worried about is leaching potential, right? So that's why
yeah.
the leaching test was performed on that material, is to answer that question.
And this would have been after 3 or 4 months?
This was no, it was reasonably soon after the event. They collected all the debris. I mean, it takes time. It was, you know.
Right. Well, what I saw, the date, on the date, looked like 3 or 4 months
Okay,
after
well,
the event.
Yeah, okay. Well,
So-
I guess it took a while for them to collect all the debris and get it to the lab.
Okay. And wanted to correct on this, if this is approved and the cadmium telluride is approved, they'll be testing every year? Is that what was, or should I wait? We probably should wait. That's all right. I'm sure it's in the list that we're going to be seeing here, so.
Yes, it is. There is a condition that the soil testing will be performed in accordance with the proposed soil testing and remediation plan operations phase, and there are some additional standards related to that in here.
Okay. We can wait till we go down the list.
Yes, it's every 5 years after construction.
Let's go to the next issue.
All right, I'm going to switch.
Thank you. Sir.